Girls, Keeping It Real with Tania and Nette. Hello, everyone. We are here today. We've got a new topic for you as we start into the new year. And it's kind of based on when Spirit gives a message to you and then that message kind of doesn't pan out the way you thought it would. It's like, how do you cope with that? What do we think about Spirit? It's sort of, we're exploring all of that sort of stuff. And Tanya's going to actually be quite open with us because she's had a personal experience with this at the moment. And so we appreciate your candidness on this, Tanya. It's not going to be an easy subject for you to talk about. So, listeners, expect anything.
Here comes my vulnerability. I can already feel the tears. So in the last podcast, do you remember I gave the message that was the time frame, and it said things can look different 5 days ago, 5 days from now, 2 months, and 3 months. And then at the end of the podcast, I said 5 days, 1 month, and 2 months. So I don't know if that was my mistake or what that was, but 5 days after we did the podcast, my partner Kevin and I decided to split up, and he has since moved out. And I think for me, what I really want people to hear is that that hurts. I'm completely and totally going through the grieving process, but I would receive readings for years, and I love getting readings for years, probably 6 years. And in some way, shape, or form, it would always be describing Kevin. One reading that I had described what he looked like, it described what he did for a living, it described absolutely everything. And for years and years and years, and I was just waiting, because being in a deeply, committed, loving relationship is really important to me. It's something that I very much desire, that I don't know if I want to say struggled with, but it just, it hasn't happened for me. And so when I went on my first date with Kevin, which is one of the best first dates I've ever had, Spirit piped in and they go, "Was it worth the wait?" And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because when him and I first met, we didn't actually, both of us were like, I don't want to have a relationship. We were both very busy with our kids and sort of what was happening in our lives. And also, probably 3 months before I met Kevin, I received another reading about, some difficulties that we would be going through in the relationship, but that he needed to stand his ground. And as a result of that, there would be a lot of happiness, long-term, whatever. And that's not happening. And I think that it's important for people to understand that just because something you believe is in your path, it doesn't always work out like that. So there's a part of me that's like, what? Like, really? Because I gave my all. I gave my all. I feel like I've grown. I feel like I've learned things about myself. I've learned things about my, my triggers and about who I am. And it still didn't happen. Yeah. And it was hard. Like, not only am I going through the grief of losing somebody with his children that I love very much, but I'm also going through this sort of experience, sorry, I'm crying, where it's like, why would you say that, Spirit? Like, why would you say that? Why would you, on my first date, say, was it worth the wait? Why is this placed in my path and then not anymore?
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit off camera, and so go ahead, but it's hard, and so I have a lot of questions, like, what is actually on your path no matter what?
Yeah.
And what are choices? you know,
Yeah.
and why for so long was this on my path for it to then be like, nope.
Yeah. And I think the important thing with the relationship is, you know, and the thing that Spirit's telling me now, I'm getting these two sort of people coming together. And, you know, Spirit's showing that this is your path and this is your path, you know, like the two people coming in together. And the way that they're both being guided is in a manner that we can, that Spirit sees that you will actually end up together. But, you know, the word you used before is free will. And unfortunately, with the relationships, it is two spirits coming together. So the free will comes in both times. And in some cases where Spirit believed that that other person would have a growth or have a learning in a certain way, that would match up with yours, that is where the path would be. And in some cases, the other spirit, the other soul, veers off the path of where they thought they were going to be. And so therefore your path and the guide that Spirit could give you to get into that position at that time, because that is the person that, you know, going well, that's where you will head. It's like, hang on, that person is now derailed off the same, you know, line, and you're standing there going, hang on, Spirit, I'm here, I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, this is the road I'm meant to be on. Why is that person now, you know, taking a T intersection over there? That just doesn't make sense. And I think that free spirit of that, I mean, it is, they are guides, you know, they're saying to us, we're guides. And it's important to know that if you didn't want free will or have free will, then we could predict exactly what's going to happen. But it is also one of the beautiful things about being who we are. It doesn't help you feel any better in any way.
No, but you know, these are things that I say to people. These are things that it's like, you know, you've got like 80% chance it's going to work like this, and 20% chance it's going to work like this, or you know, you have free will. Like, for example, I give somebody a reading and I can see pregnancy coming up for them, and then they decide they have the free will choice to start birth control and, you know, not end up becoming pregnant. Like, we do have those choices, but it was also for me like the prolonged period of time that no matter who I sat down with or what reading, I would get snippets of information about this relationship with him. And I mean, who knows? The reality is maybe he could make a different choice, but he hasn't. And from a spiritual perspective, that's hard.
Yeah.
You know, doing this work and being so confident in the messages that I give people. And, you know, this is what Spirit's saying, and trusting and believing that. I think it's important for people to know that there's other factors that
come into play. I remember doing a reading for someone, and I saw three paths, A, B, and C, and they were basically telling me that that A or B could happen, and I could see kind of that there was a path that was probably going to be brighter than the others, but there was one that they were warning not to be, and so they were concentrating on C more than A and B. But the person I was doing the reading for was like, no, I want to know, like, I'm going to go through a lot of pain either way, just let me know from Spirit which one I'm going to end up with. It was a very similar case. Am I going to end up on my own, or am I going to end up with these people, with this partner? And the biggest message that they kept telling me was, I can only steer you to the path, and I can't give you the answer. And I'm remembering those pictures really clearly for you as well. It's a very similar thing. They can steer you to the path. And in that case, they made it very clear that it's not her that will make the difference. It is him. And that he has, he's very strong spiritually, the partner as well. And he has the ability to switch off from his seventh chakra and actually not connect in that soul perspective anymore. And so therefore he just sees a facade, like a human facade, rather than actually knowing that person. And by doing that, he has the ability to go, and unless he's going to change, you're going to end up in A, but hopefully you're going to end up in, I think it was B that they were saying not to. You'll end up on C. That's where you want to be. That's where you're going. I can see you together there, but I can equally see you over here. And sometimes when we're getting messages, and when you're getting someone giving you a message, they'll see both messages and they'll see one brighter than the other, and they'll give that message. But that other person hasn't met the need to actually be on that path. And so it doesn't matter what you've done, you cannot change that for now. And it doesn't mean that, like in this case, I see it actually, if it does go off, it can actually come back into the center again where they end up together, or that someone else comes into that path and fulfills those shoes. So, in her case, there may end up being someone else that ticks all the same sort of needs that she has, but different boxes just down the road. And if that relationship stayed together, then Spirit's seeing that they're not going to change. They're not going to learn. You're going to be like 20 or 30 years down the track, still hitting your head up against a wall with whatever this thing that is stopping you from being together. And so, I'm sort of pulled to that reading in comparison as matching pictures for what this is. I think, we don't have a concrete path from Spirit. We have a concrete destination, and we've talked about that in our readings a lot, in our podcasts a lot.
Which is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's the way that they show it to me is that if it isn't going to be this character that grew with me, it's going to be somebody else coming in that can meet me where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I just find that sad, because I'm living in a 3D world, and I want that one.
Yeah.
And I recognize, Spirit has never actually left me out to dry.
But yeah, and I think his journey is within himself, sort of separate to the podcast. Probably it's more the learning of what we're doing, of what you've been through. But I'm seeing a scale, and salt being dropped onto each scale, and one getting more than the other. And I'm getting that really top. And I think that's the issue for a relationship to work. You need the balance and the equality. And when one is getting more of something and less of the other, it's not balancing. And I'm watching it where it tips down on one thing, and then that person loads up on another colored salt. So it's when a relationship just doesn't get that balance of equal to, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's just got to be carrying to the fact that it balances. And I think it's really hard when it doesn't, because you can see all the things that all the colored salts that equal, all the things that do balance it. And when there's one thing, and often the one thing is the one that actually tips it right out of scale, it's like, well, we've only got that one ingredient different. We're only like got pink salt. If you just got pink salt,
right,
we would be equal.
Yeah.
How hard is that?
If you just did this, we would be okay. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, we always talk about free will, and free will is a real thing. So then, somebody else will come that's going to meet me there.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
It's going to be a different character, a different body, but it's still going to be somebody who's going to hold the space.
Yeah. Well, it has the ingredients that balances you out. And I think that's what it needs, because he's probably looking at things that he's saying, but she doesn't have this, or she doesn't do this. Like, we all look at each other saying, oh, you don't have that ingredient, you don't have that. It's like, well, you don't have this and you don't have this. And we sort of go, but hang on a minute, I just want to balance that. And it's finding that perfect relationship. And it doesn't mean that same person can't come back either, like they may end up back in a similar spot.
That's the problem, right? It's evolve or repeat.
Yeah. And it's how do I yeah, how do I break from that? You know, how do I do it? And, you know, we do, I do a lot of things with putting things into an energy ball. You know, it's called a rose healing. And I put the energy at the time when everything's happening into that rose, and making sure that that energy doesn't come with me on the path, you know. And I think that is one of the secrets for why I've had a lot of trauma in my life, but I don't feel like I have, because I don't carry that energy forward. And I think for the listeners, when you go through a relationship breakup, or that doesn't have to mean with a partner, it can be with a friend, with a sibling, a mother, a work colleague, whatever it is, when you move from an area because your partner has to, or whatever happens, I think trying to make sure that that energy gets, you know, disappears, gets diffused, is really important, that you don't carry it. That'll help you not repeat or not fall into those patterns again. And yeah, but look, it's a tricky situation. It's like we trust in spirit so much. That's what, you know, we're lucky enough to be able to talk to spirit so much, get all these guided messages. And when your message that looks, you know, and sounds like a lifelong, you know, happiness, it's like, well, what the
Right? Yeah. And you know, I'm going through just regular like 3D body grief.
Yeah.
And there's no loss. I mean, we've had numerous conversations, like there's no loss of love between the two of us, but there's just this I grew, you know. And it's interesting that you kept saying balance, because that was always what I was getting in the readings, was that this was somebody that would come into my life and create a lot of balance, where
Yeah.
we really balanced each other out. And through this relationship, I have learned a lot. I've softened an incredible amount. I've opened my heart. I've become more vulnerable, which I think are the things that, you know, I needed to do. Yeah, but you know, where this sort of leads me to discuss what, because I don't want to get into too many details about the actual breakup, right? Oh, you just got a message. What?
Yeah. Spirit was just saying, if he had have told you, interesting he's saying he, because my spirit guides are male. If he had have told you that you were not going to last, would you have gone into the relationship? Would you have battled? He's saying, would you have, like he's showing me a ship in the storm, would you have just got out on the first storm?
Probably.
Yeah. So he's saying that the lessons that you learned and all the things that you have just said were crucial for where your journey is going, and crucial for the next person that's coming into your life, because the next person coming to life needs those softer things. They have them already, and so that's in their balance. And if you're going to come in as without that ingredient, that relationship won't even happen. And so that relationship that is spirit is telling you that it's going to be long, is going to be there, but you needed a stepping stone to get to there. And if they were going to tell you that that stepping stone was going to be there, they said 100% you would have ejected. Like you would have not got into that.
That's true. That's true. And maybe that's something really important for people to understand. Like, for example, I say to somebody, oh, I don't know, your kidney's not functioning properly, and you go have tests. And then upon you having those tests, you find out that you actually have a heart problem. You were led down the path that you were supposed to go to get there.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's like, I think there's a combination of a bunch of different things. I don't think I was led into this situation to fail and for it not to work. I think free will is very much a thing. But two, because spirit knows this person has a choice, we don't know if they're going to go right or left. But if they go left, say they split as opposed to staying together. We want her to stick it out because she needs to learn these things, because she needs to soften, she needs to open her heart.
Yeah. And it was where spirit starts to see, hang on, this is not going to happen. They're not going to tell you that, you know, they're going to say, hang on, you need to get all the bits you need to get through. And then, then it will, you know, sort of go to where it is. And that's something you actually have said many, many times in our podcast when you remember back to them.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I can know this on a more of a like a spiritual, intellectual level, but on like my emotional, my heart, like I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I miss him and I love him and I love his kids. Like it's painful. It hurts.
Yeah. And you kind of, it's like, why would spirit put me through that? Like, you know, why would they be so, you know, and I look back, there's a few situations where I've, you know, had things happen that spirit has told me, and I'm like, why? Like, that messed me up for ages. Like, why would you do that sort of thing? But I now know why, because I'm out of the emotional side of it and I've moved past it and I can look back. But when you're in it, you know, I still actually look back with the pain and think you could have done that easier. Like, come on, man. You know?
But I don't know that it's them making it more painful. It's me.
Yeah.
And just the human experience, because I am diving into the grief. I'm diving into the pain and it hurts. Being human hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. We were given all those emotions and all those wonderful things that give the joy and the love and all that sort of stuff. And the balance of that is the pain and the hurt and the, you know, if only we could have picked the good side of it.
And then I don't know. They're saying to me right now, a smooth sea never made a seasoned sailor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And okay, fine. You know, I get it. It doesn't make it easy. And you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows as we talk about. But one thing that I wanted to bring up is surrender, because I know I can't remember if it was on podcast or just we were messaging each other, but you were talking about the traumas and the difficulties that you've had in your life. And you were saying, but I have had traumas and difficulties and things like that, but I surrendered to spirit. And I have to say that's something that I struggle with, because like to actually go, okay, spirit, I get it. Free will, I understand. And I actually would say that I'm doing it better this time than I've ever done before. But to be like, okay, I get it, I understand. But I'm struggling with my words a little bit. I was with my psychologist on Saturday because obviously I've been talking to him about my relationship and the incoming difficulties that have essentially ruined it. And that's not true. It's entirely on, you know, repeating a pattern. But anyways, and he said, you know, what that really is being helpless. That grief and that pain, he's like, you're helpless. There's nothing that you can do. And to me, that is surrender.
Yeah.
When you're like, spirit, I've done all that I can, which I have. I've put in everything that I can without completely going against myself. And here you go, because I'm helpless. And it's hard to be helpless.
Yeah, and I think for both of us, we're quite control freaks in that we control our lives.
Effective.
Yeah, we are. We know what we're doing. We plan it. We're strategic. Being intuitive actually is really good for you know, strategy and looking forward, and so we can control most things in our life. And you know, when we talked about on those texts, and even I think we spoke about last week on the podcast a little bit, when we talked about surrender, for me, it's times where I realize that, okay, I can't control this, is when I surrender. It's like, okay, this is no longer my There's no interference that I can do that will change this. So I have to
Yeah.
ride this, and I just ride it. And you get to the other end. And I put full faith in that at the other end, I am going to be standing up. And at the time that we were, doing it, there was I was getting messages through from repeat people about a lighthouse and how a light shines down on your life. And, you see that shipwreck, you see someone drowning in the water in that light. And then you move over that light just a little bit and you realize they're like, if they move a little bit, there's an island there and they can just walk out, and it's like, but I didn't see that because I was in that trauma. So I sort of sit there in that drowning motion, just letting myself emotionally disappear into, sadness and whatever it is. And whenever I see a little bit of light move over, I grab onto whatever it is and go, okay, I'm going to go there because that island is somewhere. I just have to keep waiting for it, like, yeah. But it is hard.
I love that. But I think there's a difference between like feeling the grief, feeling the emotion, and having that human experience and trying to control, or not control, but I think for me, I got to a place where it was like, I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
I can't do anything else. I stop, you begin.
Yeah.
And so that to me is where surrender is, which is something I've struggled with. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to not cross into that person's space, which I'll be honest, I have, and try and do it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's recognizing when you're helpless and you just go, I physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally can do nothing else. Take it. But that doesn't take us out of the very human experience of emotions and grief and pain.
And like, you've got to go through them. Yeah.
So I feel like I've shone the light on the island. I'm at the island. And although I can, sort of understand on a deep spiritual level, these lessons and the free will and all of that, it just seems unfair. But someday I'm going to be like, this is better. This is better.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I surrendered to spirit.
It was funny as you said that my battery, my computer, I moved it and it was unplugged and it came up with low battery across the whole screen. It's like, she's like, I'm there. I'm thinking, well, Tanya's run out of battery too. It's like,
right. Yeah.
I need a recharge. I need a
Yeah. So it'll be interesting for the listeners, and I will update you all how it's going to turn out, because it was 5 days, 2 months, 3 months, and then 5 days, 1 month, 2 months. I don't know what's what, but it'll be interesting to see what happens, because it even specifically said this time needs to be to rest and rejuvenate, because there needs to be a rising in order for the pieces to get put back together in a different way. Now, my very earthly self is like, oh, okay, so he's going to get it and we're all going to be fine and we're going to come back together. But I don't think that's necessarily true. Yeah. It would be what you're seeking is going to be put back together, but it might be a different character.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing too. It's not that it's not going to be him, but I think putting your faith in that it's going to be him is irrelevant.
It's that I'm going to get what I'm seeking. Yeah, absolutely. And Spirit's message on that is still, that they're going to guide you in the right path so that you're going to get what it is. And even it means there are bumps along the road, you are going to end up with what you want, and sooner than later. It's not like you're going to be 99 and go, here you are, you're my soulmate. Yay, I finally met you. And I don't want to give the impression that having a life partner is like the be all and end all, but it's something that's eluded me that's really important to me. It's something that I very much want. Yeah. And I think it's okay to want that. It's okay to want, deep connection and partnership.
Yeah, and
So
I think you're not only just going to, like people will manifest that ahead, we're looking at the new year, people are like, I want this, you're willing to work at it and not just work at it hard,
yeah,
So yeah, I think
and
putting those
grow.
things, yeah, and I think that's something for all of us with this, 2024 moving forward, is to identify things that we want for our path, to listen to our intuition and to sort of go along there, but know that if there's a bump in the road, that doesn't mean you're not going to get what you want. It just means that, there's learnings that have got to happen along the road, and that you ride, put the seatbelt on and ride the roller coaster. It's possibly going to be bumpy, that's just how it
Yeah,
is.
and it just let go of the idea of how you think it should look,
Yeah.
because I assure you, if I could have told you for the last 6, 7 years what my life partner was going to look like, it was him.
Yeah, I got a
And
message for someone which relates to that really well, actually. And they showed me a photo of this perfect little picket house with a picket fence, the family and the dog. And then they showed me this one where these people were just laughing, and, that there was a kind of disheveled house in the background. But they were happy and laughing. And they said, the problem is you're so focused on this picture that you need to drop the picture, because your happiness and your love and your life is around already, but you're not seeing them because they don't match the perfect picture that you keep painting. And so what you said just before is so crucial. It's like, if we build an image of what we want and we hold on to that image too much, we might miss what's there, or what's on the side, or what's on it. And I don't think that relates to your case, but I think it is important for everyone, when we put something ahead or manifest or whatever we're doing of what we want on our road, don't lose track that if you paint the picture, then you've only got one thing to aim for. And yeah, it might not be that one thing that is going to give you that happiness and that joy.
yeah, and there's another part of me that will go, well, my camera looks all funny, I need to sit up, that goes, well, this didn't happen, so what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
What do you know
The
what I
blame
mean? Like,
game. Yeah,
yeah,
blame
like,
yourself.
what did I do, spirit? Like, what am I supposed to be doing differently? But in this case, I don't believe that I'm missing the boat.
Yeah.
It's like the boat's going down the river, and it's like I'm on the boat, and it's like, bye.
I think the blame game is really dangerous. I think there's a good thing about reflecting on what has happened and whether there is things that you could learn from it. But the blame game, either way, like blaming when a situation goes, blaming yourself or blaming someone else, actually has no value. It doesn't bring value to anything. It just brings animosity, and the other person feeling like they're being blamed for something too actually just doesn't help their growth. And it's more it's recognizing that this is the case, this is how I feel, this is what I think went wrong, but there's no blame involved in that. And if you can take that away, that's surrender in many ways as well. Surrendering to the fact that this has happened, that I've learned from what I hope the other person's learned from what they've learned, and that we're moving forward. There's a big healing when one can do that sort of. It's yeah.
Just to be clear, I didn't mean like blaming in the 3D. It was more like, how we talked about, oh, well, there's specific lessons that need to be learned. It's like me feeling like I screwed up and I didn't learn my lesson, so now I don't get the prize.
Yeah.
Like I acted wrongly in the eyes of spirit, so now almost like I'm being punished, which spirit doesn't do. It doesn't.
No.
I'm just being very honest and vulnerable about what's happening for me, where there's this feeling of like, shit,
Yeah.
did
It's
I
kind of the
make
superstition blame, right? It's like, I walked under a ladder, I broke a
yes.
mirror, right? It's
And
you
even though I understand these things at the level in which I do, I still go there.
yeah.
It's
It's
like
funny. Yeah.
I
Uh,
didn't do it right, so now I'm not going to be blessed with God's grace and blessings, and that's
yeah.
false
Yeah.
thinking.
And that is the blame game. That's like, you know, it's blaming yourself for not learning or not doing it. Whatever it is that you're blaming yourself for, it's the blame game. It's whether you blame yourself in the 3D or in the spiritual, it's irrelevant. It's just, you don't, you know, you didn't walk under a ladder. You didn't not learn a lesson. You didn't do all those things. And we're also worried about that, aren't we? We're like, you know, you talked about someone with breast cancer or some sort of cancer. And, you know, you were saying, you know, I'm not your medium if you want me to tell you that because you did something bad in your childhood or whatever it is, or you're wrong, that you've got that doesn't relate to each other. And I think we've got to remember that ourselves to go, okay, yes.
and that's the message that I really wanted to share, is that like, I'm really human here. And I'm going through all the pain and all the emotions and all the thoughts of everybody else when it comes to sort of understanding spirituality and understanding life on a different level. And even though I know these truths, even though I still do it.
Yeah. I found though, in the one that happened to me earlier in the year, it actually afterwards, when all the emotion had gone and I got better, I was stronger in my relationship and my belief with spirit. So I hope that happens.
I would agree. I would say every situation, I end up stronger in my relationship with spirit, but it's when I'm in like that valley of human emotions that I struggle in it. But so we'll see what happens, but I'm thank you so much for holding space. I really wanted to share that. I know a lot of readers that question these things when it's happening to them. I know people that have come for readings have been like, what the hell's going on? And I mean, I've had experiences where I have been guided and steered a certain way because I believe I had a particular lesson to learn. And it's kind of like you said, like, would I have stuck through this if I thought it was short term? And I wouldn't have.
Yeah. Very good. Well, that's our TikTok time already up. Why does it go so fast?
Thank you so much, everybody, for holding space for me. I hope that I was able to give people a bit of a message that's important to understand when things like this happen, and you're not at fault. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely chatting with you again, Nettie.
Yeah, same with you. Thank you for your vulnerability. It was good to be part of for all of us. I think there's a learning in there for everyone. See you all later.